When you go to a counselor's office, you expect that everything that you share stays private, that your counselor is not going to go and share that with whoever they want, and that your information, whatever you happen to share, is going to stay in that office. Is that really the case though? Let's check it out. My name is Isaiah. I am a licensed professional counselor, and today we're going to be checking out what are the exceptions and the limits on confidentiality within the counseling session. Please make sure to like and subscribe. All the subscriptions definitely help our channel to continue to grow and to create educational and good content for you all. So there are a couple of protections built into the profession for protecting everybody's private information. On the national level, you have HIPAA, which is the acronym that nobody seems to remember correctly. But basically, there are some protections built in about how personal health information, or what's considered protected health information, stuff that can help identify a person, like their name, their address, phone numbers, and things like that, can be shared, and what circumstances they can be shared, and how that information needs to be protected. You also have different state laws that describe situations in which information needs to be protected or shared, as well as ethical codes that also outline how information needs to be protected or guarded. So with all these protections in place, you would think that a counselor would never have any reason to share your information, right? So here's the catch. There are a couple of specific situations that counselors are on guard for that may necessitate that they have to share your information. And here's what they are. First, if a judge compels a mental health professional to share particular information about a client. Now, I've never been put in this situation. I hope I never am. This is definitely an experience that most counselors do not want to go through throughout the course of their careers. Another situation in which counselors have to share information are in cases of potential or suspected child abuse. This can show up in the form of physical abuse, sexual abuse, or emotional abuse or neglect. And of course, this is a situation that counselors don't want to find themselves in. You don't want to walk into a case with a family or with an individual, and then it comes out that there's some concern about abuse, whether it's emotional or physical abuse or neglect. And you have to make a call to CPS to have to report that, like, hey, there's a problem here. And so every locality should have its own child protective services. If you're calling after hours, this is really where counselors don't want to be involved, in that there's a certain time frame that you have to report any suspicions or concerns of abuse. And so if the local office is closed, you're stuck with calling the national line, where there's a long wait. Just like think of calling a call center where you're waiting in line to file your information that may or may not need to be followed up on. And I say that it may or may not need to be followed up on because it's not up to the counselor to make that determination of like whether it's abuse or not. It's up to us to say, I think there's enough information here that I have a concern that I need to report. And then it's up to whether the local office or the national office to be able to follow up on that to see if that meets the criteria for some kind of intervention. And of course, in all of this, it isn't the counselor looking to cause trouble for the family. It isn't looking to break up the family or say like you're bad parents or anything like that. This is just a situation where safety is a priority for the child to have their physical or emotional needs met, or their needs for safety to be met. And that's why there's a priority for safety over that confidentiality at that point. And then final situation where your information might be shared when you are not asking for it to is, of course, if there's a concern of harm to self or harm to other people. Of course, if you say you are planning on hurting or killing yourself, then there's definitely going to be a priority on that safety. And I, as a counselor, that would be negligent and irresponsible of me to hear that, talk about it for a little bit in session, and then say, all right, you just go home and take care of yourself. That is not fulfilling my responsibility to your safety. And so then a conversation should be evolving from there. Does emergency services need to be involved? Do we need to go to the hospital? Do the police need to be involved to help transport if safety is that pressing of a concern? Again, all this is not to inconvenience or get all up in somebody's business, but at that point, that's a safety issue, and the counselor would be irresponsible to just let you walk out in that situation. And when it comes to harm to others, if you're saying that you want to hurt or kill somebody and there's a specific threat, there's evolving debate around this, but the Tarasoff case back in the 90s established that counselors have a duty to warn somebody who might be in danger from one of their clients. And so again, the responsibility falls back on the counselor or the mental health professional to be able to say something either to police or to relevant parties involved so that safety can be assured as much as possible. And as we're talking about these things, I don't want it to make it come off like counselors are waiting for the first excuse to share your information without your consent. That is absolutely not the point of these laws and these ethical codes. These exceptions have been written into law over time because of how things have played out in the past, with different situations necessitating these exceptions be put in place so that people's safety can be prioritized. And again, there are good and not so good ways for counselors to handle these. Potentially, you can never say anything to your client and just be calling CPS behind their backs. That's maybe not ideal, but you would still be fulfilling your responsibility as a counselor if you legitimately thought there was some kind of concern that you had to report. On the other hand, you could be having that open conversation. Ideally, at the first session when you meet the client, you'd be telling them, hey, this is the limits of my confidentiality, that I will protect your information to the best of your ability. If you tell me that you are abusing your child or that you're going to kill yourself, there are some limits to how much I can keep under our umbrella of confidentiality. And so if you have that kind of conversation right at the start, ideally there won't be a surprise if that becomes an issue later, and you can refer back to that conversation that you had at the beginning to be able to say, hey, based on what you're telling me, I need to make this call. And that allows the client to be part of the conversation also. That doesn't need to happen once the client leaves or as a surprise. If they make the call in front of you and either report themselves or call for help from a hospital or anything like that, some of that helps to discharge some of that responsibility, so it doesn't have to be the counselor themselves making that call. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is really sticky and it really changes based on the situation. I think the takeaway is that safety is a huge priority and mental health has a huge impact potentially on the safety of the client and the people around them. And so counselors do have to be well versed when that safety becomes enough of a concern that we compromise one of our highest values, which is that privacy and that confidentiality that allows us to build that relationship and that trust that makes counseling effective. If you have any further questions about that, I would definitely encourage you to talk to your mental health professional about that, because like I said, some of these things will differ slightly between states, between localities on how some of those things are handled, and just based on the resources that are in the area. Of course, I do hope that none of you are ever in that kind of compromising situation, whether you're a client or whether you're a mental health professional yourself. Everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to check out this video. I hope it was helpful. Again, please like and subscribe. It definitely helps our channel to grow and for us to continue to create content for you all. Until then, be well, take care of yourself, take care of others around you. See you next time.